Yeah. Somebody's got to keep track. That's all said and done. She wasn't here yet. I'm just feeling it. Second break. Second best class.
Welcome everybody to Dealmaker Atlanta. We're going on about a year now of Dealmaker Atlanta. We started down in Newnan, Georgia, almost 10 months ago at a little brewery, Lime Creek. And first of all, just thank you to everyone that has been supporting us since we got started. My partner Josh can't be here tonight. His son is graduating high school tonight, so he is making a family choice. So he said, "Eric, you think you can handle it?" I was like, "Yeah, buddy, I got this." I've left him to run the meeting a few times before as well. It's a great thing about having a partner in this. You trade off sometimes. First and foremost, Danny and Ann, thank y'all so much for being here tonight. If y'all don't know Danny and Ann Williams, they run a meetup in Fayetteville, Georgia called Triple E. And 9 years ago, Tiffany and I wandered into the IHOP, sat at the back of the room and started writing notes about real estate investing and just took it from there. Honestly, being in a room like this of like-minded individuals that are chasing a dream that's bigger than where you are now, that's the place to be. There's a lot of different kinds of people in this room. We have beginners, wealth builders, we have enders. And as I like to say, there's another level of sustainers, people that like where they are, they're just keeping it up. So thank you for being here tonight, no matter what level you're in. Tonight we have a wonderful guest speaker, Courtney Fricke. Some of y'all are here because of Courtney's name. Some of y'all are here because I said Courtney's coming. And some of y'all are here just because you like drinking booze and hanging out with real estate investors. So whatever brought you here, I appreciate you being here. You could have been anywhere else on this Thursday night, but thank you for being here. We are On Purpose Investor, and we host Dealmaker Atlanta. And if I can get my little button thing, that's the wrong computer, so it didn't work. At the On Purpose Investor, our mission is pretty simple. It's to help everyone invest with hyper-intentionality, with purpose, and with clarity. We're not those gurus that get in front of the room and say, "Hey, I hope you like what I said tonight. I have a $5,000 course you can take right now. Just see me at the back of the room." That's not us.
Yours are 3,000?
It's only 3. That's right.
Tonight only.
Yeah. Courtney is actually going to help me with those transactions. So thank you, Courtney. Appreciate that. No, we're here to just add value to one another, share our stories, share our wins, share our losses, and encourage one another. How many of you know someone else in this room? All right. Now keep your hand up if you have done business with someone else that's in this room. All right. This is something I learned from Danny, right? In a room like this, you're very likely to participate in some type of business transaction with somebody else in this room. Do so with sound mind and do so with clarity. Not everyone is made equally. Danny tells me all the time that if someone does wrong by you, you have a, what do you call it? You have an obligation, a moral obligation to tell others about that if they ask you about that person. So your character and your moral integrity is going to make or break you in this business. So keep your word, do what you say, and say what you do. Oh, almost went to the wrong computer again. We try to do this every meeting. We like to celebrate small and big wins. I'd also like to present us maybe talking about some losses tonight. If anyone wants to share like a learning moment, Tiffany and I like to say that the first 3 years of our investing, we never took a course. We never went to any seminars. We went to Lakaya U, the Streets University, and learned from the School of Hard Knocks. And there's something to be said about learning by doing the wrong thing. So first of all, are there any wins in the room? Anybody wants to share and celebrate? I've got one. I'm closing tomorrow, potentially, hopefully, on a property that's going to be a flip. I don't know yet. Haven't heard back. Any other wins? It does not have to be real estate related. Yes, sir.
I'm new tonight, but I closed last week on the 1031. I've owned the property for 22 years. It was a subject to, and the family that had been in it the whole time bought the house from me, so they were very excited about that. I close on one next week. And then I've got another one closing in about a month.
That is outstanding. The one you close next week, is that the replacement property?
No. No, I'm selling and I'm buying apartments.
Oh, wonderful. Outstanding. I love that.
Trying to move up, playing Monopoly.
Monopoly, I was about to say, it's the game of Monopoly. Yes, redheaded lady in the back.
We also have one under contract and one almost under contract
Which one?
to sell.
I don't remember.
We're selling a house.
That's right, they were selling.
Well,
Which one?
evidently Tiffany said.
She knows what's going on.
I hope you didn't want it.
We had to negotiate an earlier close date because they wanted to close 5 days before my due date. So
That's right.
we've got one under contract to sell and one in final negotiations.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Yeah, and then another one is going on the market in a day or two. Yeah. So we're selling off a lot of houses on owner carry. So if any of y'all are interested in buying a property without the bank, come talk to us. So, any more wins? Mr.
Well,
Dan?
we saw one already, and we're gonna close on one this week,
Next one.
next week.
Wait, you're going
We're
backwards.
thinking the herd as well.
Wonderful. Outstanding. There was over here? Yes?
So my dad passed a few years ago, and his wife was living in his house, and she wanted to buy it. I wanted to buy it. I was nice, let her try to buy it, and she couldn't buy it, and I just bought it. But my siblings out of my childhood home.
Woo! Now, did you say fifth one?
Or like to call her my stepmom, like.
Okay. I heard it, and I was like, I'm asking.
I wasn't sure I heard it right.
Let me add, Eric, the two houses that we're selling, these are houses that we bought with another partner. And we've had them for a lot of years. As time goes on, your goals change. Theirs change, yours change, and we were able to do this and keep everybody happy, so
That's right.
that was a win.
The win-win strategy, the problem-solving mentality. You'll catch a lot of fish, Reggie, right? If you have that mentality going into this business. So if you're just getting started, try to create win-win situations, and be above board in what you do. Next, we have our haves and wants. We're going to take about 10 minutes, and I really want everyone to think of something in your mind, whether you have something or whether you want something. Maybe you need property. Maybe you need money. Maybe you need babysitting. Just think of something you need, and then think of something you have. Do you have a property to sell? Do you have a four-wheeler rusting in your garage that you want to get rid of? Think of anything you have or anything you want, at least one thing. Write it on a Post-it and put it on the board. So we're going to do about 10 minutes of this, of haves and wants. If you see something you like on that board that someone else puts up there, take a picture of it. All right? If you really want it, you don't want no one else to have it, and you know you're going to follow through, take the Post-it. All right?
Taking the whole board.
So for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to put some music on, and we're just going to spend 10 minutes doing some haves and wants. And if you just want to sit at your table and chat for a few minutes before you write one down, that's fine. But please, everyone, grab a Post-it.
Figured it might be better that I set up. Where you want me? You want me to move it over here? Where would you?
Yeah.
And I don't have to do it.
I have 9.9 acres in DeKalb
I
County.
think I have one more.
Totally fine. I just figured.
I'm just gonna play a couple of songs.
Are you upside down?
If I borrow that, is that the pins here?
That's right. That's my watch.
Excuse me.
Well, actually, I don't even use the 10. I'm a hammock guy. Tell you what, you learn how to do it, better than king size bed. That's where I go to this meeting.
I do read That was left to talk. Share what they
Who's Nat? You're Nat? What do you need money for?
I have one property that I need to renovate.
Okay. I have money.
doing the haves and wants. All right, so haves and wants. Hopefully everybody got something on the board. And when we finish our presentation with Miss Courtney tonight, and you didn't get a chance to read everything on that board, there's going to be a lot of networking after the presentation for you to go pick up a Post-it note. I had to take a lot of Post-it notes off of it last time. I'm hoping this time, after the event is finished, just take a Post-it that you like, right? I threw a bunch of them away, right? So if you want to just take pictures, that's fine. I'm fine throwing them away. But if you want a souvenir, right? Maybe even a contract to yourself of, I took this Post-it, I'm definitely going to call this person, right?
I already run a Xander board up there and email it to everybody.
That's in a couple months.
Yeah, that's in August or July?
I think August.
August. All right. Yeah, Ari's going to be presenting in August on financial calculator and other tools.
Exchanging,
Exchanging.
but not 1031 exchange. We're gonna take the whiteboard concept. We're gonna put it up on the big screen. You're gonna make offers to each other. So you're gonna understand how to put things together and build allies and make deals in the room as it's happening at this meeting.
Interesting.
That one's going to be fun. So don't miss that. Now, so about 6 years ago, Danny and Ann said, if you haven't been to Gary Johnston's Financial Freedom Principles seminar in Atlanta, you need to go. And then he asked everyone in the room, how many of you have been to Gary's seminar in Atlanta? And I didn't raise my hand, but I'll ask tonight, how many of y'all have been to Gary Johnston's seminar in Atlanta? Right? How many of y'all been more than one time? How many of y'all been more than 3 times? 4 times? 5 times? Every time? Yeah, it's a wonderful, incredible weekend that Gary Johnston puts on that teaches financial freedom principles. It's a mindset shifting seminar that will completely transform the way you think about investing in yourself and in assets. It'll completely change the way you look at your tax return. It'll change the way you think about most everything money related. So if you're not going this weekend, I think he might even still have a few seats available.
Probably not. I
maybe
didn't
not.
ask him. He normally sells out, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
But if you're interested in going to that, please come see me after. I'll give you information about that. But at Financial Freedom Principles, I met Courtney Fricke. We both sat in the back of the room with my wife and her partner and Peter Fortunato. We were all just sit back there taking notes aggressively, and we started talking, and we became friends. We stayed close friends for 5-6 years now. And Courtney is the queen of subject to, and she's the queen of connection. She is an incredible problem solver. She takes complex deals and makes them simple, so everyone at a closing table is left feeling full and satisfied. So tonight, you may hear things that are not necessarily subject to related, but whatever you hear tonight, take notes and take heart that what she says is meaningful. And she's not up here telling us about subject twos and like this, wild abstract vision. She's doing these things, right? She's not up here, do this thing because I heard some other person say do this thing. She's actively doing these things. She's from New Orleans, Louisiana, and she's up here for Gary's class. And I'm so thankful she came up a day early to join us here at Dealmaker. If y'all please help me welcome.
I am very glad to be here, although as a New Orleans person, one of the least favorite places to be is in Atlanta. I'm sorry, I had to do it.
Rise up, go Falcons.
I am a soul saint here, so I can't get into that argument. But I thoroughly love the Atlanta folks. Thank you so much for having me. Oh, look at that. I already got it set up. And so I'm very excited to be here. As he mentioned, I'm here for Gary's class this weekend. Fifth, sixth, I don't know, something time that I've been. And I very much love coming here, meeting a lot of the folks. So shout out to the folks who run meetups in the area. If you run a meetup in the area, raise your hand, please. All right. Thank you so much. If you guys are here looking to get into real estate investing, you should find out about their meetups. I ran a meetup in the New Orleans area for years, and they're often a thankless job, right? And I promise you, they're not money makers, things like that, right? You almost got them, right?
Almost.
But and the other thing I just want to say before we get started, these haves and wants is so critical. So I put 2 things on there. Fun fact for any of you who follow me on social media, I just bought a hoarder house, and I usually tell the contractor, go clean it out, tell me when you're done, and I write a check. But for those of you following me on social media, and you guys know why I'm cleaning out? And you guys remember from the videos? He was a collector. I have made a dent from the door. Emily, you've been to the actual house, from the door to about where Emily is, which is where the hallway is. And I have found a collection of stamps. I have found Beanie Babies in boxes, like the little clear things. I have found over 1,000 Coca-Cola bottles and other types of bottles with Coca-Cola in it and without. So many things like that. So one of my halves is I have a crap ton of collectibles. And so I speak French sometimes. I'm trying to not speak fluent French tonight. But it's this idea of literally when I go home, I have made a small dent in that house, and I already have to go to the auction house. I'm like, I need an appraiser. I'm like, it is wild the things I'm finding in this house. So I have learned that he's a collector of more than just the Coca-Cola, because the Coca-Cola was outside the house. The start of it was some of that. Anyway, obviously, you guys know about Coca-Cola down here, so I was like, maybe I should bring the Coca-Cola stuff to Atlanta at some point. All right, let's get going. We're here to talk about subject 2 deals. So just a small bit about myself. That's my baby face. I got in the industry in 2014, and my very first deal, I had to use creative financing because my biggest issue was my pockets were empty. So if that's ever been an issue, understand it is most people. Either it's, having access to the money or knowing how to get it, getting qualified with a bank. Those are common problems, but it's often a mindset of what is possible and what you know how to do, but also a skill set. How can you figure out how to buy something without money? And that's what we're going to talk about tonight, is a form of creative financing. So this is me in front of my first deal that I bought. I do have the privilege of being on the radio at home in New Orleans every weekend. This weekend, I am getting a little break and I'm not on it, but that's fun. So I started the North Shore. I'm based out of New Orleans, but I started in the suburbs of Real Estate Investor Meetup, and I do have a podcast. So I consider myself a solutions-based real estate investor. And what that means is if there's no problem for me to solve, there's no reason for me to be here. I am looking for people who have a problem for me to solve. And if someone calls me and I can't find some sort of problem, I say, hey, well, then who can I refer you to? I'll still help you, but you shouldn't be selling to someone like me, right? So I do best when someone has some sort of problem, and when that problem's tied to real estate. And over the last decade, that's helped me buy hundreds and hundreds of houses. Thankfully, I ended up learning better than having to own them all. So I, too, am selling off some of mine as well. So let's go ahead and jump into that. So I'm full-time. I consider myself solutions-based. Historically, I started off, I grew one of the largest wholesale companies. So I first started off flipping, but then I grew a large wholesaling company in the New Orleans area, which is really all good and fine. Made money, bought a lot of houses, didn't keep a lot of houses during that time. And as my mentor, Peter Fortunato, told me, he said, Well, when you buy and flip and wholesale, or if you're a real estate agent and you help people do those things, you get to have a lot of stories, but what you don't have is equity. Some of those houses, like, man, I wish I would have been able to keep that house. Look what it's worth today. And you guys ever done that before?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I cause myself heartburn when I pull up some of those properties. But so historically, I did about 60% of my deals were with cash. And when I mean cash, someone like, Danny and Ann would lend me money. Financial friends would lend me money on a deal. And that was how I was able to buy the deal with cash. So not a bank, not a hard money lender, but a financial friend, right? And 40% I would buy with creative financing. Either the seller will let me make them payments, or I could take over making the payments on their loan. But now I'll say I'm easily maybe more 90% creative financing, 10% cash these days in my deals. And as I said, I got started flipping and wholesaling. Now I'm predominantly buy and hold rentals, okay? Or buying them to sell them on financing. So that's the majority of what I do now. I consider myself ambitiously lazy. I get into fun projects like documenting on, social media, the clean out of a hoarder house. But then once it's clean, I actually don't want to rehab it. So I'm going to sell it to someone like you guys who are going to want to get into that, right? It needs a little bit too much work for my taste. So that's a little bit of my background. I am not an attorney, not a real estate agent, not going to play one here in Atlanta. I don't even play one on the radio. So who here has done a subject to deal? Can you raise your hand? All right, about 40% of the room, 50% of the room. Who here has heard of subject to, but they have not done their first one yet? You mind raising your hand? Okay. And then who here has not heard of subject to, and this will be your first time learning about it? All right, so I think we have everyone accounted for. So that gives us a good idea. About half the room, just about half, has done it. The majority of everyone has heard of it. So I meant to update this. Who here has gotten a loan recently and want to tell me what their rate was?
So 7.5?
7.5 on a rental?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
APR.
Okay, the SCR, so 7.5. Anyone else got a loan recently? They want to tell us what the rate was? But that's about what we're seeing. So this is based on a New Orleans property for a rental, 20% down, and this is just off of bankrate.com. Gives you an idea. You're roughly in that range, not too far off, just a little bit off, right? So this is about what we're seeing right now. So I know it might be difficult for some of you guys to see. 5.25. Is that better? Yeah. Right? All right. Just making sure I'm checking if, in Louisiana, sometimes our math doesn't math the same way. 4.75. Is this better? Right? So these are actual statements for some of my rentals. So you can see back, I just pulled this one. But this one, all right, 5.25. And then you see this is another one of my rentals in Louisiana. What about this one? 3.375. Better? Okay. These are multiple of my rentals. This was one that got sent to me as a deal. 2.75. Oh, God. Right? We haven't seen those numbers in a while, right? These rates out there, what's the lowest rate any of you guys ever saw?
2.75.
2.75? Well, thank you. That's quite literal. Thank you. Anyone else?
2.25.
2.25? 2.25? I saw a 1.9 and I was like, sweet baby Jesus. my knees got weak. I think they paid some points. I was like, is that even legal? Doesn't it feel like a traditional, I think it was a traditional mortgage. They paid points and got it down. So this has been, so if you want to talk about some charts, right? Historically, over the last 30 years, this is what interest rates have done, right? The height, right? Up towards 18% was the height. What was the highest you guys ever saw?
18, I think.
You think 18?
Well,
16?
we signed a contract for the house we live in for 15%. By the time they built it and we moved in, it had dropped to 12% and we turned target.
You got to steal.
That's the one that's now at 2.25.
You got to steal again. So, all right. So it talks about the averages around where we're at now, right? That in the mid 7s. But there's something I want you to pay attention to. starting in 2010, and it goes all the way into 2021, we were sub 5%. So it's actually really important. So for any of you guys who like, macroeconomics, and I'm not here to talk about that, but right now, there's a lot of unintended consequences happening because we stayed that low for that long. Different conversation. That's for the meeting after the meeting. But when you see that for, these rates staying below 5% for that long, what are some thoughts that you guys have?
They're never gonna sell their house.
They're never going to sell their house. That's actually a really big, so in the macroeconomic world, they're calling that the lost decade. So if any of you guys like to research some of that, it's the idea of what is that going to do? People going to be stuck in place. What else is this? What are some other thoughts you guys have about this?
Don't lose that rate.
Don't lose that rate, right? Valuable. Anything else?
We'll never see it again.
We'll never see it again, Chris.
That note's gonna require a huge discount if you're buying.
We found the note buyer in the room. Good point there. Anyone else? All right. Go ahead, Kurt.
If rates are that low, people aren't gonna sell, which means there's no entry level houses, no move up buyers.
The move-up buyer issue. Any other thoughts, Emily?
Find people in distress that have a loan from that decade and subject to.
It is, for this long, they were creating this many mortgages.
It's a lot of mortgages.
Anyone remember 2021? Anyone in here a lender on the traditional side? Not saying the investor side's bad, but anyone on the traditional side? No? Yeah, they're all drinking right now because of the interest rates, right? Remember the 2021 boom? I mean, my lender friends were rolling, right? Because of that boom, everyone refinanced, was wanting to purchase. And so there is a level here that there is a significant amount of inventory. Let's speak to it to this much. All right, so this is from, I needed to find a newer one. This is from Q2 of 2024, where, so if you add the 35 and the 21, we get 56. 56% of the loans that exist out there are less than 4% interest rate. Isn't that crazy? So, so if I remember the data right, 35 to 40% of the houses in America are free and clear. The rest have mortgages on them, right? But of them, 1 in 2 people you talk to have a less than 4% interest rate that we may never see again, or it's going to be a long time till we see that rate again, right? So this is super powerful to think about how many people have those low interest rate loans. That should be, I want to encourage you as capitalists, when you hear about stuff like this, you should say opportunity, 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 right? Hey, for that 10 years, they were producing these low interest rate loans. 2021, the amount of those refinances that people did, that you should say there's something valuable in the marketplace that that much was happening. I got a little greedy. I got a little excited. Just a reminder here, when we had really low interest rates, your people's ability to buy more of a house was stronger, right? So when you have a lower interest rate, you can afford more, right? Well, when interest rates go up, people can afford less, right? So one of the things here, by using creative financing and to be able to tap into terms, loan terms like an interest rate and different things like that, I basically get to manipulate the marketplace. Basically is what I get to do. Because if, right now, if I were to go buy a brand new deal and I currently would have to use 7.5% interest, I'm closing one. Y'all, we don't have Wells Fargo down in Louisiana. For whatever reason, they don't have branches down there. And I'm trying to refinance one of my subject to deals right now with a private money lender. And Wells Fargo is giving us issues to where they're like, oh, you have to go in person. And to add insult to injury, when I pulled up to the hotel, there's one right there. I'm like, I was like, of course. But it's this idea that your interest rates can vary, basically depict what you can pay for something, right? And I'm getting 8% on refinancing with a private individual next week. So it's like those things matter. So let's jump into subject to. So what is subject to? Yes, I talked about it's a form of creative financing, meaning it's not traditional. But more than that, it is a disclosure, okay? It is disclosure that you're buying subject to something. So when someone says subject to or sub to, you should say subject to what? Because who here has bought a house where there was an existing tenant in it? All right, so you bought subject to what? The lease, right? So if you're buying, let's just say a duplex and there's a tenant in one of the units, you should do what during your due diligence? Read the lease, right? Be like, hey, because what if it was for $1 for 10 years? That would be an issue, right? Like, so I got a little excited. We're renting out one of our units right now for $1,200. And previously we had a tenant at $750. So I'm like, we should probably put that one for sale afterwards. Because, I mean, we can sell it subject to that lease to another investor. And we would do better than when we had the $750 tenant. But it's basically, it's this idea of you're buying subject to that existing mortgage staying in place. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Super, super popular right now. But let me remind you, it is nothing new. It has been around easily since the 60s that I know of for sure. So with that being said, someone on the internet didn't create it. It is something that has been around for a long time, but it has evolved and changed over the years. So you want to make sure you're staying up to date with your education on it, because the ways I did subject to deals even 5 years ago, I'm not doing them the same now. So that's important to keep in mind. Just because it's not new doesn't mean things haven't stopped. It has helped me buy nice houses like this. So I bought this 2021 build just a few months ago. Needed less than 1,000 in work. I'm ambitiously lazy, so I'll take that. All day long, twice on Sunday. Some not so nice houses, but some great opportunities to buy deals with equity, and then plenty of deals with equity. I think one of the most common misconceptions with subject to is that you have to, or with creative financing, is you have to overpay. You guys know what I'm talking about? This idea that, oh, well, they're willing to let me do this. So I've got to pay, way over asking, or I have to, basically I can't use the same principles that guide me on my other deals with this. I frequently buy deals. I bought this one this year, worth $240 fixed up. I bought it subject to $117,000 mortgage. Needed 35 in work. I mean, those deals exist, right? It requires some skill, but those are some options out there. So let's kind of break it down. Subject to is when the seller has a house and they had a mortgage that I like, right? So I like both. So normally when I buy a house, we pay off the loan and then I get the house. Well, with the subject to, I get the house, but the loan stays in place. So we don't pay off that loan. And so the seller went and got this loan with the bank. So they signed on the dotted line. They brought their credit score. They brought their, their debt to income, their W-2 to qualify for it. And so there's no re-qualifying for this loan, right? The loan has been established there, right? And so a huge part to this is I am not going to go establish some sort of official relationship with the bank. I may have paperwork that allows me to talk to them. But a lot of times with subject to, I mentioned that there's two relationships. There is the relationship that the seller has with the lender. Again, they had to go qualify. They looked at all their financials and they signed on the dotted line on the mortgage. That is one official relationship, number one. Official relationship number two is between the seller and I that says, I'm going to make these payments on that loan. Let's just say it's at 3% with Wells Fargo. I'm going to make them on your behalf. And we're going to have an official relationship. We're going to go to a closing with a title company or an attorney, and we're going to sign on the dotted line that I'm going to make these payments on your behalf. What I'm not doing is I'm not going to the bank and creating an official relationship with them where I'm, getting into some sort of agreement with them. That's called an assumption. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions with the subject to deal. So when I say two relationships, it's the seller and the bank, and it is me and the seller. I may have paperwork to talk to the bank, but I'm not creating some official relationship. Okay, does that make sense? There's two separate agreements here. Because one of the most common misconceptions with subject to is that I'm going to the bank and qualifying for this loan. And that basically I get to step into the seller's shoes and take over that 3% interest rate. But that's an assumption, and that's not what I'm doing. Okay, so a subject to deal is not an assumption. So that's really important because not every time, but a lot of times the seller will say, well, are you just assuming my loan? Oh yeah, you're assuming my loan. It was really bad when I had 3 different attorneys say, oh yeah, an assumption? No, sir. Tell me you don't know what you're doing without telling me you don't know what you're doing. So there's a level there that it's important that you understand that it's not that. So I truly believe it's not an option for every deal, right? You don't want to take it like it's a round peg and go try to push it through every square hole, right? Or whatever they say. You know what I'm talking about. But it's something I'm not forcing on every deal, right? Just some situations. Look, if a seller doesn't have any mortgage, I'm not saying, hey, let me take over making your mortgage payments. What payments? Right? So keep in mind, it's not for every deal. It's not for every seller, right? It is not the right fit for every seller. But I also believe it's not the right fit for every buyer, right? If there's a buyer that would have issues making their own monthly payments, I always suggest, hey, work on making those payments on time, work on doing those things first before getting into a 7-2 deal where someone's credit is involved, right? The seller's loan is still tied to their credit. So I don't believe that it's for every buyer. I don't believe it's for every seller, and it's not without risk. A lot of folks, whether it's on TikTok, YouTube, whatever, they're like, do a subject to deal. It's the best deal for a beginner to get into. And I always laugh. I'm like, out of all of my deals, subject to gives me the most headaches. I'm like, I wouldn't wish that on a new person. So you wanna spend some time getting to learn how to do it. Real quick, as the market shifts, we have some things like obviously the higher interest rate we talked about. Are you guys seeing higher insurance here?
Yeah.
So in Louisiana, fun fact, the average insurance policy is $13,000.
You pick those floods, baby.
Yeah.
So it's actually not. It's predominantly wind and hail, but everyone thinks it's the flood part. So we've been in an insurance crisis since 2020.
$13,000 a year per house?
My average, so that they say that's average in the state. My average is 4,000 to 8,000.
In Uptown?
Huh? I live near Uptown, but I have properties all throughout South Louisiana. But legitimately, 4,000 to 8,000 is my average per property. And guys, most of my properties are not worth more than $300,000. So crazy, right? Insurance crisis. Florida's having it really bad. It's happening in California, different parts throughout the country. So major increases on PITI, and then obviously concerns. Anyone have some concerns about recessions, right? And what happens in a recession is the potential for a credit squeeze, meaning banks are less likely to lend, or maybe just a little bit more nervous. They have more criteria, things like that. So when I have to say this slowly, a shift happens, things kind of change. The lending landscape. This is, for those who follow me on social media, I posted a house that I bought for my father in 2021. I bought it subject to, it was right between my 2 sisters' houses, right? So he could go down and take a right, or he can go down and take a left, and within 10 minutes be at either one of their houses. In real estate, we don't really have forever homes. At least I might not be there yet. I bought it, and the original payment was $1,168.31 in 2021. When we sold it in February 2024, it was right under $20,070 a month, a $900 increase. That's what the insurance crisis is doing in certain markets. How many people, average Americans, can afford that much of a squeeze? So think about that. What if someone's seeing that just through inflation? So take it out of the mortgage context. What if that's, people's, grocery bills and, utility bills or whatever? When people get squeezed, right? When they're living paycheck to paycheck, that creates opportunities to solve problems, right? Tell them I said hello. All right. So this is why it's a really big deal. The current escrow balance. So learning how to do subject to is to do it right is super important. This is a deal that someone just brought to me. This guy was facing foreclosure. I've stopped foreclosures in Louisiana for the last decade. He had a current escrow balance, which is your taxes, insurance, right? That balance, negative 21,000, almost 22,000, with a balance of 212. And I'm sitting here, it was forced place insurance, but it was just such a, forced place is a really high. Craziest thing in Louisiana, we're actually considering forced place as affordable. That is, let's go and jump into a case study because I'm obviously reminding you why New Orleans might not be the best market to invest in right now. All right, so let's jump on this property. This is a property that I bought in the suburbs of New Orleans. So in rooms just like this, there was an investor who was there, who came to the meetings pretty regularly. And then he stopped coming because their family was growing. He became a stay-at-home dad, a lot of stuff like that. But during that time, he put his head down, he figured things out, and he bought 10 rentals with the Burr method. Okay. And he was super, super excited. I was very proud of him. But in doing that, buying very quickly, he didn't put a lot of money aside for reserves in the event that one of them went vacant or some issues happened. When he called me, this property had been sitting on the market for, at that point, I think 8 months on the market with a real estate agent. And he had gone down to his bottom dollar. And he said, Courtney, because this thing has been vacant for so long, I now know I need to go creative. And he said, so he had heard about something called subject to. He said, will you buy my property subject to? And he said, because I believe that if you say you're going to make the payments, you will. And so that was a really big deal that one, he believed that, and two, that's why he came to me, right? When he came to me, they had a moisture issue underneath this. You can't tell, it's a raised house. And when I went there, the tenant had abandoned their couch because it had fallen through the subfloor. And there was such a moisture issue. Every time I went there, there's a video of me on YouTube, and I'm doing this because there's mosquitoes called the moisture issues. Every time I go to that house, I'd get eaten up. Let's go through the numbers. So I purchased it. So he got quotes at like 80, but that was using like the high-end contractor, the type, right? Like when all their trucks have matching logos and their shirts have matching logos, I'm like, yeah, my price range, buddy. No disrespect for any contractors here. So, okay, it was worth the ARV, it's worth fixed up. 200 was being conservative. And he was getting quotes around 80 because not only did you have to like tear up the subfloor, but there was kitchens and bathrooms you had to deal with when you pulled that up. You guys know what I'm talking about. So, and I really think you could get away more like 45, 65. So I bought this deal. It was actually in September of 2022, and I brought $2,951 to the closing table. That was for closing costs, and I did have a little transaction fees for someone on my team. So $3,000. I mean, I'm not saying you can find that in the couch cushions, but I mean that's not the hardest thing to overcome, right? I purchased it subject to a loan that he had. So this was the exact balance of the loan: $83,657.50. He had a monthly payment that was $750. And it was an investor loan, a DSCR loan, actually, 5.25% that he got in 2019. So this is 3 years later. And I bought it from him as is, couch and everything, whole in the living room, the whole thing, right? He just wanted out because every month it was sitting vacant on the market, he had to pay that monthly payment. And it drained every bit of reserves he had for all of his 9 other properties. And he said, Courtney, I'm very scared to go into foreclosure. I tried on the market. It's, struggling. So I bought it. I actually didn't want the house though. Remember, I'm ambitiously lazy. In 2019, I stopped buying full guts. And so this one wasn't a full gut, but it needed more work than I wanted to do. And so, but I said, you know what? I still saw an opportunity here. So I bought it. And within a week or two, so remember, I met him in rooms like this. But guess who I else met in the room like this? My in-buyers. And they were 2 contractors who wanted more rentals. And because they were self-employed, they struggled getting financing. So I sold them on a master lease option, this basically repair for equity deal. Okay. So I kept the title, and we had paperwork that said that they were going to pay me monthly rent with the right to sublet. And they had to do the repairs. And they had the option to buy the house for me within a certain timeline. Okay. They put a $5,000 option fee up. Okay. So I paid $2,951. I got $5,000. I now have all my money back and that I have into the deal. Okay. And Then it had $120,000 strike price. I was at 83. I was selling to them for 120. I left meat on the bone for them, right? It was still an attractive deal for them. And they were going to pay me $950 a month. And so I was going to make a little bit of cash flow. But unfortunately, I got that $5,000 in about 24 months of payments, and they defaulted 9 times. Some of my lender friends, I know 9 is too many, but I tried working with them. The market very much changed. And so, I didn't want to have to do the rehab. So I was like, we can find a solution here. So we tried working some solutions, but eventually I had to draw the line in the sand and take the property back. So I took it back at the end of last year. And thankfully they fixed the foundation issue, thank God. But it was subfloor. Like I had to do a lot of the cosmetics, things like that. They didn't leave a lot of supplies. That was fun. I put 25 in it to finish the rehab. And then I sold it on MLS back in March 21st of this year for $185. We priced it aggressively, and within 48 hours, we got a full asking offer. So I was like, look, we could have been more closer to the 200, but I think it would have sat. And I didn't want to do that. So this is the HUD where it shows $87,973.50. When someone shows you this, understand it is almost always BS. That is not what I made. Also, I was traveling when we did this closing. Otherwise, I would have argued at them because they put this on the wrong line. So a HUD, right? Line 203 and line 503, they should have put our 80,000 payoff should have been on line 3, not on line 4, because we had a subject to loan on it, not just a normal loan. But digress, the buyers picked that title company. It also reminds me, tell me you don't know what you're doing without. Anyway, because the attorney called me afterwards and he was like, I have some questions about this subject to stuff. I was like, let's talk. Anyway, here's that gross. Now let's remind you, I still take from this, right? So what you see on the internet, when someone shows you a HUD, it's not always there. So minus the 25,000, right? But now you got to add the 5,000 plus the 200 a month for 24 months, which is 4,800. So that puts us around 72, but you still have to take out, and I'm sorry I didn't pull this math for you, the utilities as well as all the payments made. So let's just say somewhere around 65, 68 is around where I was at on this deal. So very different from the 87, but also not bad for a deal I didn't want, right? How many people, and don't raise your hand for this, but how many times have you come across a deal and you're like, well, I don't want to do that much of a rehab, right? Or that might not be exactly in the neighborhood I want to own in. But when you become a stronger deal maker, and I love the deal maker communities, I love, Jim Ingersoll who puts this on, and then all the ones that have opened up around the U.S., I want to encourage you, the stronger that you're a deal maker, you can then see deals like this. You can see these opportunities. I didn't want this house. I didn't want that rehab. I didn't want the mosquitoes that came with this. But I saw an opportunity and, $65,000, let's just call it that, $65,000, sure. There was 2.5 years between then, but that was an opportunity I still capitalized on. And so understand, when I buy subject to, it's not just for my long-term rentals, it's also for deals like this, which I can then use. A big part of creative financing, which you've heard me mention tonight, one of my main mentors, my main mentor has been Peter Fortunato. He says, use what you have to get what you want, to get what you need. So I used what I had, which was someone who called me and said, Courtney, I need help. To get what I needed, which was some equity. And that equity helps me get what I want, which is maybe paying off some loans that I had, or fixing up some of my properties, or buying another property, right? Or putting some reserves in the bank, right? So don't be afraid to know when to buy a deal. I call them my supporting actors. And the main actors are my main rentals that I love, the legacy properties that I want to keep, right? And so there's plenty of deals I do each year that are just supporting the rest of the portfolio. It's not, my favorite neighborhood to own in, right? some lessons here was that investor came to me because he felt that I was competent, I can get the deal done, and that I was trustworthy. Him and his wife signed on the dotted line, and he was so afraid. He had never gotten behind on the payments. He was so afraid that if he did the deal like this, someone would get behind, right? But he said, I believe if you say you'll make the payments, you would. By the way, he has now offered to lend private money to me. That's what happens when you do good business, right? Other opportunities open up. Let me ask a question. What if I wholesaled this subject to deal to those two contractors and I made my 15 grand?
Then the guy selling the house would have been in trouble.
The guy who came to me, he said, Courtney, I believe you'll make the payment. He would have been in trouble 9 different times, in fact. I'm pretty sure I probably would have, gotten the phone call every single 9 times, right? I don't mind wholesaling when it's cash deals. And I have a very strong opinion against wholesaling creative deals because it is in essence selling your promise. Now, if it's a 30-day promise for cash, those deals can get done. But what if there's 2019 loan? That you had a significant amount of time left on that deal for them to, in essence, make payments for the rest of that loan. I like to stay in the middle because it allows me to protect my reputation, which, as Warren Buffett says, takes a lifetime to build and 5 minutes to destroy. But when you stay in the middle, you make more money. Do you think as a wholesale deal I would have made $65,000? No way. There's no room for that in the deal. But then the other part of that is it then limits wholesaling a creative deal, invites risk into your business for the remainder of that deal. Plenty of times people call me, hey, Courtney, I wholesaled the deal 2 years ago, and now the guy's not paying, and the seller keeps calling me saying, hey, can you get him to start paying? And there's issues, right? And you guys seen some issues like stuff like that. So I want to encourage you. People say all the time, oh, you're in the house business. I'll say, baby, I promise you, I talk very little about the houses. So maybe people say, oh, this is more of a people business, right? Yeah. But this more than anything is a business of promises. The minute I stop keeping my promises, which may be my payments to a private lender or financial friend, it may be the payments on a house like this is subject to. The minute you stop making and keeping your promises, it's the minute that the house of cards can come down, right? People, they would fear lending to you, doing a deal with you again. And so I know in a challenging market right now, a lot of folks have called me, Courtney, I'm struggling making my payments right now. The deals aren't going according to plan. Please talk to the people who are in your life. Say, hey, can you help me find a solution for this, right? The worst ones is when no one talks. That's what happened to these guys. They stopped talking to me. I said, all right, great. I'll take the property back. I'll do what the paperwork gives me the chance to do. But I was going to give them the opportunity to work it out. But the minute they stopped talking to me was the minute we stopped finding a solution together. And then just a reminder about the don't want her deals. All right, real quick. Sell the benefits, disclose the risk. If all you do is talk about the good side of subject to and you don't talk about the downside, this is when you kind of come off as like a used car salesman. I'm sorry if there's any in the room. Brene Brown, famous author, she said, to be clear is to be kind. So what we can take from that is to be unclear is to be unkind, right? I like to tell sellers, let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And guys, I've never had one run. No, none of that. It's been a long day. You can tell. I have sound effects. So let's talk about the benefits for sellers real quick. So obviously you can get them out of a tough situation, right? The other part of that is a lot of times it can allow me to be, to operate with speed. I can act really fast, right? And so that's super important, right? Some situations, if I ever had to buy a house in 24 hours, most likely, and I knew it had a loan on it, I'd be buying it subject to. And if there be, I've stopped foreclosures last decade, right? So if they're ever behind, and I don't know if some of you guys caught it on some of those mortgage statements I shared. How many of those did you guys see some people behind? 19,000, 46,000 behind. People get behind, right? So one of the benefits, I can catch them up on the loan and stop a foreclosure. And if I make payments over time, it actually impacts their credit in a good way. And then one of the last things is I can actually sometimes pay more than if I was paying with cash. So because you guys remember higher interest rates, you have to pay less, lower interest rates, you can kind of pay more. Again, but I don't overpay. That's important. Benefits for buyers, obviously the low interest rates, like we've established that. But then I didn't have to go through the brain damage of qualifying for that loan. I didn't have to I don't know what my credit score is. I mean, I can find out, but like, I don't use my credit to buy properties. I use credibility. Very often I use credibility to buy properties. But I couldn't tell you my credit score because it's not the tool I use in my tool belt. I'm not saying it's bad, right? So I didn't have to go qualify with the bank. It's not on my credit report. Remember, it's on theirs. It's tied to theirs. Their credit score, they're the ones who qualified for it. One of my favorite benefits as buyers is it's amortization. So in a 30-year loan, which is commonly what we're dealing with here, at around 15, the 15-year mark, about what happens then? You start paying a lot more towards principal, right? So I bought a house last year, 2012 build house, so pretty house, with the original 2012 loan. So in a 30-year loan, I stepped 12 years into the future. So when I talk about, one of the things I love about Subject 2 is, yes, the low interest rates allows me to manipulate the current interest rate environment. It also allows me to manipulate time. So if I went out and bought 10 properties and today, and I got 10 DSCR loans for 30 years, agreed. To pay them off before that 30 years, I'd have to work really hard, get some lump cash, or be making extra payments, right? Something like that. But in my portfolio, I have plenty of properties that are going to pay off in 8 years, 12 years, 25 years, because I'm able to buy them at different places. Does that make sense? It's one of my favorite benefits that people don't talk about.
Question, if you don't mind. How do you value that when you are evaluating what to pay on a deal? The value of the amortization of it?
Great question. Because it's tied to time, and one of the things I'm not guaranteed with the Subject 2 deal is time, I don't give it value to the seller. It's just a value on my end if I get to realize it. Does that make sense?
So then you don't really offer any more for the house
So
as a result of the amortization?
I pay them. So it's not something that I say, oh, well, on this one, we're going to give you an extra $2,000 here. None of that. It's, so it's not something that I give them a specific line item value for. It's just a benefit I give. But here's the thing is I don't go betting on that because, and I'll say this, when I look at Subject 2 deals, I look for 5 things. I look for, and this is not in the slides, I look for cash flow, right? So after all your expenses, what will the property make? I look for equity. What am I paying for today and what is it worth? I look for the amortization, right? The pay down on the loan. So where is it at? So a 2012 loan, what if it was a loan that's only 1 year old, right? We're very early on. We're going to pay a lot of interest, right? The other one is, so one of the things you're looking at is that interest rate, okay? So when you have a lower interest rate, it just eats at that principal faster. Just in theory, you pay it off faster. And the 5th thing is what I call probability of performance, meaning we all know rural, we're in the South, we know rural properties. You might be in a neighborhood that there's not a lot of rentals. And I'm like, well, I think it'll rent for this, but there's no exact comp to compare it to. Or same thing with the ARV or something like that. And so it's that idea of what you put on paper, will it actually do that? Some areas you can say down to the T, I know it'll do this because I have 3 other in that neighborhood. Or, that neighborhood's got, properties that sell all day long or go for rent all day long. But then other areas you're like, I'm going to be guessing on this one just a little bit. Bless you. And so there's a level there that I want a little bit of all of them or a whole lot of one of them. But if I have no equity, no cash flow, no amortization, I'm like starting to get through there. I'm like, why do I want this? Right? And what people tell me all day long is, well, Courtney, you should buy every 3% deal you see out there. I would argue wrong. That is not the only term in a loan that matters to me. Okay. Good question. So risk for sellers, and we're going to be mindful of time here. Risk for sellers. So there's 8 of them here. It does matter if they're living, and you guys can take it. Get out of the way. So the top one there is if they're living in the house, One of the issues is because the loan is staying in their name and is still tied to their credit, most people can't qualify for multiple loans at the same time. Now, there are some workarounds with that, but it's one of the first conversations I have. Where are you going? What's your plan? If they're in foreclosure, are they qualifying for another loan immediately? No, they screwed their credit. Like, even if I stop the foreclosure, they've hurt their credit so far, right? So, but we have this conversation. Because I'm not trying to pit someone on the street and not have a more holistic approach to this. And also, if it is a VA loan or FHA loan, there's some impacts. Obviously, all the borrowers on a loan are impacted. We're going to talk about the due on sale clause for the next one, but default, right? Hey, this works for me if you got the loan for me, but this doesn't work for you if I don't make the payments, right? Like it's a two-sided dance here. So don't be afraid to talk with them. What happens if you don't pay? If a seller doesn't ask me that, I know that they're not fully informed on what could happen. And I'm like, so I will tell them. So one of the questions you haven't asked me that we need to talk about is, what happens if I don't pay? They're like, oh yeah, I was thinking about that. I was just nervous to ask you. Well, hey, I understand that. Let's talk about it. Again, I never want to rob anyone of informed consent. Really great business book is called Extreme Trust by Don Peppers. No one ever really talks about it. I read it in 2020, immediately put it down and changed some of how I did my business. And they had a phenomenal principle. So it's Extreme Trust by Don Peppers, where he said, never let your best client be an uninformed client, right? So I want my clients to be informed and for this to be informed consent. So many people like, well, Courtney, if you talk about what could go wrong, people are, again, run off. And no one's ever screamed and run off. And if anything, they say, I actually feel more comfortable doing business with you because you were willing to talk about the hard things, right? So 7, a buyer not being familiar with subject to deal and assignments. So assignments in the form of wholesaling. That is a risk to a seller because there's a lot of moving parts in a subject to deal. And for example, if the buyer didn't know how to change the insurance properly, and for example, had just went ahead and got their own insurance policy separately, and so they have 2 insurance policies, and there's a hurricane that comes. You guys had one. I was like, yeah, y'all. I know we're not right by the water, but you guys just had one, right? Fun fact: did you know insurance would actually deny that claim and say that you were, because of negligence, you were not properly insured?
Of course they would.
Because 2 policies cancel out. Could you see that ending in a lawsuit? So there's a level there that there's moving parts to this, right? It's a lot of administration, like, not only setting it up in the paperwork, but making sure the insurance is right, things like that. But I mean, there's benefits on the other side, but can you start to see how, hey, we need to look at what some of the potential risks are? And so that is in wholesaling, the wholesaler thinks they're doing a deal, if Ms. Ann goes to sell a deal to me subject to, but I'm wholesaling to someone, how does she know that person's going to make the payments, right? And then lastly, job concerns. Fun fact, you guys have there's a military base nearby, right? Military, some law enforcement, and then people in the financial sector, if they have missed payments, if they get behind, if they have a foreclosure, short sale, or bankruptcy, it could put their job at risk. So not only would their credit be at risk, but their source of income could be at risk. And so that's actually a big conversation I have, because when I have folks, especially who would qualify for that, someone should know, right? These are the things they should know about so that they can make an informed decision for them and their family. Did you get it, Carrie? Okay. Risk for buyers. All right, the first 4 have to do with the seller. I'll get out of the way. The first 4 have to do with the seller. So the benefit is they went and got me this loan. Thank you for doing that. Fun fact, I wholesaled a deal to an investor like 3 years ago, and he called me back again like a year ago, and he goes, you want to buy it from me subject to? I'm like, well, thanks for getting the financing for me. I season it a little bit. But the downfall is you're getting in bed with someone, right? The downfall is there's a human. How many of you guys know that when it comes to real estate, there's no impossible deals, only impossible people? It's the people that make it messy. Well, so I see subject to as a financing tool, right? Like just as if, a bank had a certain product like a DSCR loan or something, right? So for me, subject to is a financing tool, but the caveat is it's tied to an individual, and people can always make things messy. So death, divorce, and bankruptcy. All three of those things, I don't know about Georgia law, but pretty much just about everywhere, when someone dies, goes through divorce, or goes through bankruptcy, they have to involve attorneys and their specific courts, probate court, divorce court, bankruptcy court. And I can promise you, some of those attorneys may have slept through their property law class that talked about for 2 seconds in one paragraph something called subject to. And they were like, wait, what happened? So this is where, that debt could be at risk. So we talk about valuing, the pay down of that loan and all that. But, that 3% interest rate loan could be great. But what if something like this happens 5 years down the road and that loan is now in jeopardy, and that loan you may have to deal with that loan, right?
Courtney, Tuesday, Tanya and I paid off a 72 deal because the gentleman had died. And the granddaughter got involved and had attorneys involved.
Didn't know.
I could have fought it, but I'm also a student of Pete Fortunato, and nobody went to the lawsuit, so I paid it off.
So do you mind if we talk about your situation with number 5
Go right ahead.
or number 5? Okay, but I'm going to pull you in for number 5 as well, though.
Okay.
So Carrie, all right, so borrower dies, the one I'm refinancing when I get home, the one that the private money lender uses Wells Fargo, and so that was salt to my wound today. Seeing that, the borrower had died too, and it complicated all of our paperwork and all of those things. The heirs didn't really want to cooperate. Every time we would ask them to do something, they wanted to get paid, and it was just like, this isn't worth it. So we're refinancing that one as well. But we bought it with a discount, and we've been paying down, so it's fine. I literally had to go get a 40% loan to value loan. It was so easy. I could have closed my eyes and touched a lender at that, But number 5 is the one that a lot of number 4 and number 5 apply to your situation based on what I know about it. So you had a situation where the due one still got called. Do you mind sharing what happened?
No, absolutely. I got a call from an attorney, and he's like, "You're a hard man right now because we had a trust in our LLC." Anyway, I made it hard to find me. And he finally tracked me down somehow, some way. And he goes, "I don't understand this." And I told him the situation. I said, we took it over subject to. I said, it's in a land trust. Because at the time, this is what I knew to do. I put the trust in the name of the seller. It was the Peter Cajon family trust.
Hear what he's saying, that's what he knew to do at the time.
Yeah.
Keep going.
And so, with us being the beneficiary. And anyway, he finally tracked us down, and he didn't understand it. It was an attorney. I talked to him. This was months ago, and so eventually the granddaughter calls me, and she's like, "I need you to pay this off." And I'm like, "We have a deal. I've got the contract,
That wasn't the agreement that I made.
That wasn't the
Yeah.
agreement, and Peter had passed away, and the wife Rosemary's still alive, but she's now elderly, and she started really I want this out of the name, want this out of the name. I've already informed the bank, which I think was Peter Mack or Mr. Cooper, one of the two, which aren't fun to play with.
No.
So anyway, I finally, I'm like, you know what? Give me 60 days, I'll have it paid off. And she goes, "I'm cool with that." And so we paid it off Tuesday.
Yeah. And so those are the things where, so that one happened. And then, so understand the people can make it messy. They can interfere. There's also this due on sale where they can say, hey, every loan, some of you are saying, "Courtney, how did you buy a house? The title goes from them to you and they have a loan, but how's the lender not mad at that and not saying, hey, I need to get paid?" Well, in just about every loan, there is a clause that states that if the title transfers, the lender has the right, but not the obligation, to accelerate the remaining balance. So let's just say there's, the $117,000 that I bought on that one. Even though there's, 21 years left on that loan, they can say, hey, we saw a title transfer. You've got 30 days to pay us that $117,000. That's called the due on sale. Those are rare, but rare does not mean never. Keep that in mind. And yes, there are some ways to work around it, but those are not guaranteed. So we have a few of these other ones. Number 7 is really important. There's actual normal risk to leverage, right? Jack Miller, who many of us have learned from in this room, he said that in a changing market, one of the greatest risks to your rentals is a monthly payment, right? You could have too much debt and that can put you at risk, right? Have we been seeing some prices kind of compress, things like that? When a property is vacant, you still have a payment you have to make, right? And then I do have some concerns around industry regulations. And we don't know what that's looking like, but some of you guys know Jeff Watson. We talk about this a lot, but I think there's some real concerns here that there could be some, back in the 70s when the interest rates went up to 18 and 21%, there was what was called non-qualifying assumptions that were very, very popular. And then because of that, the banks went to the courts, and federally, the Dodd-Frank Act came about. Sorry, the St. Germain Act came about.
That's a long time later.
I'm sitting here and I'm like, no, that was 82 or 3. Anyway, St. Germain Act happened, which was to protect the lenders, but provide some opportunities to protect homeowners. Also does not protect us investors. But that industry regulation came about. The due on sale clause came about because of the rapid amount of people doing basically subject to deals, right? And the banks wanted to protect their interest. So could that, because of how many people are doing subject to deals right now, could we see something like that happen? I don't know. That's why it's important to find good mentors and learn from them. If you have a fear of this, one of my best friends, he did I went to France for 3 weeks last year. I come home and we own about 12 properties together. And so he goes, I text him, I said, hey, I'm ready to meet to talk about, any things that came up. And he goes, you're going to love me and hate me. I'm like, oh God, what did you do? He goes, well, because I have a portfolio, he has a portfolio, and then we have things we own together. And a long time ago, he bought a property subject to, and then all the probably 1 or 2 dozen subject to deals we've done together, I've done the lion's share of it. And so he bought his second subject to on his own. And within 3 days of buying it, they called the loan due. And he said, okay, that's why you hate me, because I didn't listen. He didn't listen to how I do due diligence. So he didn't thoroughly look through things. But he did listen to me because he bought it at enough of a discount. So I was able to help him find a solution. And he said, you'll love me because I'll let you have all the paperwork and we'll do a 2-hour breakdown of it. So this is what that is. And that is very much him with his hand on his face. So if you guys want to watch that, very interesting. My goal was to say, if I went through all the due diligence I normally would have done, could I have avoided the due on sale? And I believe not. And so that was something very interesting case study, if you guys want to hear it.
Where do they find that?
Yeah, that's on my YouTube. I'm going to show you guys later, CourtneyFricke.com. Thank you. CourtneyFricke.com. I actually highlight these two because people ask me about it all the time, so you can see them there. So the truth about these subject to deals is that they're not risk-free, right? You just want to learn how to do them as safely as possible. My 3 best safety nets for subject to deals is, number 1, the proper education. If someone doesn't educate you and talk about the downsides, again, that's not being kind. I would call that rude. The second part of that is equity, right? So when you have equity, right, Carrie, when things go south, you're like, you know what? Great. I'll just pay it off or refinance it. And then the third one is cash in the bank or access to it. Okay. And so those things are important. These are some safety nets when things go south. I'm going to skip this one for the sake of time and go to this one. Some of the do's with subject to is you want to fully disclose the risk, right? Again, don't skirt away from this. And the paperwork is really critical. I even have a section in my paperwork where we do go over disclosures in it. Like my purchase agreement is 10 pages long, 2 pages for the normal, and then 8 pages of disclosures. So where we sit down, we talk about the due on sale. We talk about the risk to their credit or things like that. So those things, your paperwork is super important. After we had a hurricane in New Orleans, I had more than 50 people, brokers, real estate investors, title attorneys, people calling me being because what they learned is that when they were doing insurance claims that their paperwork they either didn't do the right paperwork, their paperwork was lacking, and they were struggling being made whole because their paperwork is what they had to stand on. When things go south, your paperwork is what you stand on, right? I am constantly improving my paperwork. After that hurricane, I think I was going to my attorney every other day. Hey, let's add this to it. This bank said this. This insurance company said this. Do we need to add that in some way? Number 3, you want to learn what the process is because you want to do your best to navigate it. You don't want to lean on the seller, right? They're the civilian. You want to be the professional in that deal who's leading the way. I call it conversation leadership, right? And then number 4, this is how, one of the things you want to manipulate the market in a good way, interest rates and the time factor. And then you do want to underwrite it properly. The 4 ways I underwrite a subject to deal. The first 2 you guys can do in your sleep. You look at the house, right? The condition, all that. The second part is the numbers. What is it worth? What's going to be an insurance quote? What can it rent for? All these things. What are the repairs? But number 3 and number 4, very specific to subject to. Number 3 is you want to look at that loan. So many times when I ask people, hey, tell me about what's your due diligence? What due diligence have you done on the loan? Fun fact with Steve, this is what he didn't do. He didn't do this part. And then the loan got called due, okay? Underwrite, look at the loan. This does not mean the seller send you a small snapshot of the mortgage statement and that's all you look at. I promise you that's not all it should be. Again, 3% interest is not enough for me to say yes on a deal, okay?
Well, you also got to make sure it's got a clean title, and the title liens on it too.
And that's super
I've had
important.
that happen too. I was going to buy a house and found out there's a second on there that he didn't tell me, or mechanics lien. And
So I had one a few weeks ago. Guy, I was so impressed that I thought that they were investors or real estate agents or attorneys or something. I said, okay, y'all in the industry? Because they sent me their mortgage statement. They sent me a payoff that was, current payoff, like request, all this stuff. And I'm like, all right, you guys are giving me what I normally have to go get, right? And then I real quick, it was sounding like a deal. And I liked the neighborhood. I pulled over my car and I pulled open and I did a pre-screen on title. I looked at public records on my phone. He told me that his payoff was like 197 and that he just had the loan. And that was all that he had. I pulled up in public record. He had 3 additional mortgages and an HOA lien. One of the biggest killers of deals right now is what's called a partial claim second with HUD. And you guys know what I'm talking about? Yep. No monthly payments, no interest, and due at the same maturity date of your first loan. They are killing deals left and right. He had 3 of those suckers. So he gets no monthly statement, and it's not a part of his first mortgage statement. So he just got to pay off for his first mortgage. And real quick, and I'm going to come to you. It was a $36,000 second. It was a $12,000 third and a $7,000 fourth. And then the HOA lien was like $1,600. Talk about, he thought he was in a certain place. Talk about it changing his position. Yes, Keith?
What terminology are you seeing on the statements with that HUD you just talked about? What are they calling that on the?
So they're not having anything statement-wise. Okay. So you look at that statement because they're not referencing a first mortgage with Wells Fargo is not like an FHA first is not going to reference a second with HUD, which is a completely different entity, right? So for example, if I had a first with Wells and a second with Chase, those statements are not going to reference each other. Okay. So that's the problem. And I'm telling this to real estate agents left and right too. I'm like, these are killing. I'm actually doing a deep dive. It's called the HUD HAMP. HAMP, but it's like Housing Authority Modification Program is what they called it. Yeah, Reggie?
Courtney, is that HUD loan mod recorded?
Yes, it should be. And so that's why in public record, which is why when I pulled over, I immediately looked up his name, and that's when I said, no, sir.
Courtney, that just happened on mine. I was at Keith's house Saturday, and we got the payoff.
Hey, tell me how we're doing on time.
Oh, okay.
Keep going.
That's
Keep
exactly
going.
why I asked the question, because Saturday night, Carrie and I were looking at one, actually, that was on the payoff statement.
On the payoff statement, it was 20 grand more.
It was 20, it was called non-interest bearing.
Now, and I went to the courthouse yesterday, and went to the deeds room, and we pulled all the security and warranty deeds, wasn't on there. So
Was that loan mod recorded?
Well, I bought the house in 2017 as a subject too, but I didn't even know about this until you got the payoff. Until I got the payoff, and I had to come for the, which still a killer deal. I had 200 equity, but.
All right, I'm going to show you guys this. Can you guys see these? Okay. All right. And I'm going to, yes.
So I am seeing on mortgage statements now, it says FHA case number, and that is reference to the HUD. So if you're looking at a mortgage statement for a subject to deal, if you see FHA case number, that's gonna probably reference that they have a HUD modification done.
Okay.
On the mortgage statement.
So-
They have a lot more-
So if we're, those are some things, but how many civilians know to look at that?
No.
Much less, but thank you so much for bringing that up, because I want to look at that, well, let's look. So this was the guy, hold on, let me find these. Let me see if I can get this. All right, so first of all, he sent me this, and it was like the payoff. So 197 and some change, good until a certain date, right? I'm like, all right, you requested a payoff. I'm impressed. A seller usually doesn't do that. So then he sent me his full mortgage statement. So he was 16,000 behind. And where are you normally seeing this?
So I'm looking at the statement right now for property about 72. It's right underneath the payoff statement. It's,
Oh, so I don't have the full pay.
but even on the mortgage statement I have for another property, it's there as well. The FHA
Okay.
case number.
So maybe that might be something that they're starting to do, but like if you look here, like it literally does not. I would go and look at all this, but 3.125% loan, right? So I'm looking at this and I'm like, all right. So I'm like starting to take notes because like this is a deal. This is a 2018 build in a neighborhood that's like a little bit of a resort style build. So I'm like pulling over. I'm interested. I look here and I do a quick. He bought it in 2018 for $207,000. He got a first FHA for $203,250. In 2021, he did a loan modification, and that was when he was at 191. These are my notes, so it's my sloppy handwriting. So he did a partial claim HUD second in 2021. So and it was tied to the maturity date of that first loan for $36,000. So homeboy wasn't making his payment for a minute. And then he had an HOA lien, so he's also not paying them. So that was 2022. And then partial claim HUD fourth for $12,000 in 2023. And then he had a HUD fifth position. So technically, it was another mortgage, but it was in fifth position for $5,600 in 2024. I'm exhausted. That's tiring. Like that was a lot of work. This dude hadn't been paying since 2021. Can you see that? Modification world means they were behind on the payments and the bank gave them this option to work it around. And so that came from, this is from title. This is what I saw, the deed, when he purchased it, the mortgage, it got sold. He did a modification, another mortgage, lien, mortgage. And this was those partial claims. Yes.
Does this end up going to foreclosure? I mean, obviously he's about to.
It was going to foreclosure in the conversation I had to him. So you guys remember how people make this complicated? This was always ever only his house. So he was on title, he was on loan solely. He was letting his ex-wife, baby mama, and their grown kids live in the house. And when I said, okay, just arrange for me to see it, because I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I want to make a decision. Let me see the house. I'm checking off my boxes. They barricaded themselves in the house and refused to let me into it. And the neighbor told me that it was in a certain level of disrepair. So I was like, between your condition and all your, back pay that you haven't paid, it was at that point a short sale and not a good opportunity. And I was going to have to fight through the situation to get in there. So, but this is one that I just worked on, like really big deal, right? All right. So real quick, let's finish up some of these here, but you got to learn to underwrite it. And then I underwrite the sellers. Okay. I've had deals sign off on the house, the loan, the numbers, but then when it came to the sellers, I said, no, everything else checked, but this one, because that's who is going to be tied to your financing for the next, however long you keep that loan in place. So you want to make sure you're getting a good deal, and that the seller situation, you're checked. What got you into this position? But don't subject to, don't get into them lightly, right? Like you want to make sure you're going to say yes on purpose, right? You did all your due diligence. You know that this is a good deal for more than just a 3% loan. You also, I want to say this, be very careful. The low to no equity or negative equity, low to no to negative cash flow, that is a more advanced position. I'm seeing a lot of people getting in trouble because all they saw was 3%, but they're like, oh, equity come over time. I can take a tax benefit. Okay. If all you're investing for is tax benefits, I promise you, There's a lot better deals out there. I mean, please go buy like a treasury bond or something, like so much better than that. But all right, so be careful with that. That's more advanced. I'm seeing a lot of people get hurt because they're buying low to no to negative equity, low to no negative cash flow. Fun fact, it also does not take a lot of skill to get a seller to say yes when that's what they have. Like, oh, you actually want it? I'm so surprised. Yes, you have it. And then I don't like to give up title. So I personally don't wholesale them or wrap them. I will sell them on a lease option or on in Louisiana, call them bond for deed, so contract for deed. I just don't like to give up title. Number 4, people ask me, Courtney, overall, what are your thoughts around subject to? If you gave me an entire portfolio of them, I would be nervous because of these risks. Because they have certain things. For example, at any given point, one of them could die. Or go, not all of them are married, but, they could go through divorce or something, right? Or the due on sale could get called or something like that. I would rather have 30 properties with a 5-year balloon than 30 properties subject to, because I at least know that balloon is there for that, right? So has this stopped me from buying subject to deals? No, I bought a number of them already this year. But I look at my whole portfolio and I don't want my entire portfolio full of them. Meaning this is not my entire business model. It is a financing tool. Does that make sense? So in the same way I have seller financing, DSCR loans, private money loans, whatever those things look like for you. And then again, don't be blinded by just the interest rate. You don't want to throw sound investing principles out. You want to make good decisions. So wrapping up here, I usually wear a shirt that says how you do real estate matters. So this is something I live. It's like my ethos, which is both literally on like how you treat people, right? On the how you treat people side, this is so important, which is why I say, hey, if you struggle to make your own payments on time, don't involve someone else's credit, right? Like truly. But then on the other side is the technical, the paperwork, how you structure the deal, how you do diligence, like all of that. That how you do real estate matters. Who you learn from matters. All of those things truly do matter. This is CourtneyFricke.com. This is not what it looks like. This is no longer there. If you ever have a New Orleans deal, this is how you can get an offer on it. I have some book recommendations, but this you can see the due on sale call breakdown, some of my other YouTube stuff. Peter Fortunato is one of my podcast interviews with him. You can look on my YouTube channel, all my socials here. I just did a workshop on subject to. I do not have one coming up, so this is why it was this past weekend. So if you sign up for there, I do not see myself as someone in the business of education, meaning I do not always have like stuff available. I do 2 to 3 workshops a year, and that's it. I had a 177-page manual for a 1-day class. I don't think it'll ever be 1 day ever again. So let's connect further if we're not already connected online. Would love for you guys to connect here. So I share content on there. I learned from a lot of what I respectfully call the gray-haired guys who've been doing this for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And most of them do not have social media. Exactly. That is why I respectfully say this, but it's the idea that they have seen a lot of different markets and their deal making is not just based on, sub 5% interest rate loan environments, right? Most of those folks are not very active creating content and stuff like that. My goal is to try to take some of that valuable wisdom and share it, not only for myself selfishly, but with others. So I appreciate you guys letting me come here today and share some thoughts here. I always find that I run out of time and can share a whole lot more. But Eric, how are we doing on time for questions?
I think we take 3 questions, then we'll move into networking.
Excellent.
Yeah. And if you don't get a chance to ask her your question, ask her in networking. Okay.
Can I throw in one thing?
Please.
I texted Gary Johnston. He does still have seats available for this weekend.
Wonderful.
So you can go to GaryJohnston.com and look for his class, Financial Freedom Principles in Atlanta.
So it's Johnston with a T. So
Yes.
Johnson with a T thrown in it. Come spend the entire weekend. Truly. Like I'm going to be there as a student. Yes.
Is it typical for a loan to be called due when the original borrower or whatever dies? I'd never heard of that.
So great question. So he asked, is it typical that the loan gets called due? No. Okay. Not to my knowledge. So, But here's what happens. So heirs, mom, dad died. What's going on with the house? They may not know of the agreement that was made. The other part of that is when they're looking at the estate, they're looking at what assets do they have and what, liabilities, debts they have. And they're then looking at settling those things up. That could cause some issue. My case, the one that I'm refinancing next week, she was a sole borrower and she died 2018, 2019, something. I'd have to go back and look. No, maybe 2021. But that loan kept being sold to another servicer. And so we had the paperwork with the heir, so like the limited power of attorney, all of that stuff. Thank God there's only one heir. But each servicer, like we found that certain servicers gave us problems with our paperwork, and like we'd get our attorney to call them. And so our headache wasn't necessarily, it was when they died. It wasn't again, the heir, if I ever had to call him back, he was like, oh, make it worth my time, type of thing. But at the same time, I was like, all right, dude. But at the same time, it was each servicer saw the situation differently. And we were going to have to get our attorney to really push it, like, no, these limited power attorneys should be good, like all that. And it was just not worth the head. It just kept selling. I closed on that property. I went and got the mail, and sure enough, it sold. I was like, call the title company. We're going to have to make some adjustments. And it sold 2 more times after that. And it just wasn't worth it, having to re-go, deal with stuff and like that. So good question. Any other questions? Yes.
How do you handle situations where the seller needs more time to move out?
Great question. I do not do leasebacks, especially if someone is in foreclosure. I am not going to buy someone's house and then sell it back to them. I'm not going to lease it back to them. Now, if they need just a little bit of time, like a month or two, what I might then is say, hey, can we extend, the closing date? Or, for example, let's just say they need help making the payments or stopping a foreclosure. Well, could that be an option? Worst case, I have given some people some time, but not a lot. And I've held a lot of money back in escrow. Meaning, so if they don't move, they would lose a portion of that. I don't love it. Because although you could build paperwork to support it, where you ultimately would lose is if they don't get out and I then have to go evict them. A lot of times it's the court of public opinion you lose in, not the actual court of like, is your paperwork strong enough? It's like, oh, big bad investors kicking out elderly woman who's, in foreclosure or was in foreclosure and they bought their house and they're going to make all this money because we're all filthy rich. You saw those Lamborghinis outside? So that's usually my biggest issue.
In Georgia, be careful because there's a Fair Business Practices Act that we got involved in this something about 15 years ago. So if you take a property like that and want to lease it back to the people, that can be a violation of the Fair Business Practices Act. I found that out, like I said, several years ago through an attorney. We came close to doing that, and we just said no.
I tell them, look, I'll rent you a different place I have, but I'm not going to keep you in my house. Keep you in that house I'm not going to keep you in that house because for them, it's always their house, not the place they're renting. So they're not going to divorce that mindset. And again, in front of a judge. So I might say, hey, you know what? And I would even chip in some money for movers to get them, I'd pit them in another house if that's what it had to be. But I'm generally not going to do that. Last question. Well, excellent. Oh, wait, Ari.
Quick question. Have you ever been able to have PMI removed on some of the newly originated loans you've bought subject to?
Yeah, so
what was the question?
So his question was, have I ever had PMI, so mortgage placed insurance, removed on some of the newer stuff? Okay. My understanding, so if anyone's in the lending world, correct me, there was a certain year that they put it to where they were not going to let it fall off or get removed. It was within the last 5 years or something like that. But before that, I had some loans where I didn't do anything. I just got a letter in the mail saying, congratulations, that $100 fell off. I was like, I'm $100 richer. But it was an older loan.
Yeah, Courtney, I think it's for USDA and FHA loans, it doesn't fall off.
It was something like that there was something new that got put in place.
It used to be when you got 78%.
Right.
Yeah, when you were a certain amount of the value, if you could basically pay for an appraisal or prove that the equity had grown, they would then, there's like a practice, there was a process on like your online portal or through the lender. You could, depends on when the loan was originated and the type of loan that it is. I honestly, yeah, like it depends on the loan. Honestly, there's a level there that I have had them fall off naturally, and I've gotten those letters. It's not one of those things I go and shake the tree. My fear is that that could be a level of, greed where they're like, oh, let's look at, bless you, like let's look at like causing too much attention to the one situation.
Don't wake the beast up, leave him alone.
Yeah. Really great questions, you guys.
Yeah. All right, y'all, please let's give Courtney a hand. And I'm gonna plug in my computer real quick so we can go through just the last little wrap up here. Oh boy, where did it go? Well, I've lost it.
While he's wrapping up, anyone that asks me what's the best seminar or class to take, Gary Johnston's Financial Freedom Principles is what I would tell them.
Oh, absolutely.
It's life changing, as you talked about earlier.
We've done it 2 or 3 times, something like that. And you learn something new every time.
Yeah.
If you're on the fence about whether you want to give up Memorial Day weekend, it'll be the best one you've ever had, in my opinion, honestly.
And Gary says this, and he means it. He said if you'll sit through his class 3 days, and you gotta be sit through it fully, and come to him at the end of 3 days and say, I didn't get my money for it. He said, I'll give your money back, no questions asked. And I've asked him, he's been doing this many years, have you ever been asked to give the money back? And he said, never.
I love that. Y'all, next month is a rather busy month for Dealmaker Atlanta. Tiffany and I are expecting baby boy number 3 in about 3 to 4 weeks. So, and Josh, thank you. And Josh is going to be traveling with his family and doing a senior trip for his son. And so we're going to take June's meeting virtual. I've arranged with a gentleman named Dan Devin. He is the owner of the business called Call the Underwriter. And that is an RMLO, which is Residential Mortgage Loan Originator. Or, is that right? Officer, originator. But what they do is they underwrite the loan, underwrite the buyer of a seller finance property. This is the way you strategically and above board seller finance to homeowners with being in compliance with Dodd-Frank. So he's going to be presenting on how to seller finance your properties, and we'll also go into how to structure them and how to make them sellable notes. So how you can get out of being the landlord and getting into being a note owner. Yes, sir.
He also will underwrite investor loans. So if you want to get into lending and don't know exactly what criteria you want, he can help you with that as well.
So we invite you to join us. This is a tentative date. Just know the baby may be here and we might have to move it around, but this is tentative. June 12th, 6 to 8. The email is going to go out sometime in the next week or so. But if you are not on our email list and you did sign up for through Eventbrite tonight, you will get the email. You'll be added into our email list. But if you're not on the email list and you're not getting our emails, if you'll scan the QR code that's outside the door, there's an email sign up. Just sign up for the emails. Make sure you get that. It will be virtual. It will be ticket based as well, though. So if you're a VIP member, you're welcome in. If you are not a VIP member, you want to attend this one, it'll be a sign up just like this one through Eventbrite. You buy the ticket, you come in. Okay. So that is our June meeting. If you're interested in joining our Facebook group, here is the QR code. If anyone wants to scan that real quick on the Facebook group, it's very informal. This is where we talk about different strategies of investing. This is not the place to come dump your course or anything like that. But if you have a good recommendation on a book you just read or a podcast you just listened to, or you just took a course and you learned something exponentially amazing from it, you want to share about that course, this is the place to do it. We do screen all of the posts, so you're probably not going to get through the Josh and Eric firewall if you're trying to shark us. And this is the link if you do want to become a member, a VIP member, and make sure that for 12 months you don't miss a meeting. Every single meeting we record, it's recording right now. It goes into the VIP portal. Even if you weren't here tonight, you will still be able to watch this entire meeting, everything moving forward. We're also throwing in Dream Life University and the Financial Starter Kit into this offering. So VIP members get access to all of this. So if you're interested in that, in the follow-up email for this event, there'll be a sign-up link in there as well. And also, this is Josh and I's podcast. Tiffany and I started this about 4 years ago. Josh is now my co-host with me. And we talk about the meetup. We talk about investing strategies. We talk about life. We talk about being intentional with everything you do in investing. And that is all. That is the last page. Thank y'all for being here tonight. Thank you. I'm going to roll up that banner in the next 15 minutes, but please take a picture in front of it. Tag us on Facebook or put it in the Facebook group. Grab a selfie in front of there. I'm going to ask Courtney to go over there in just a second, and I'm going to get a picture with her, and then welcome all of you to do so as well. All right, thank y'all so much. Josh.
Good.